Portland, yeah, and it was a yeah, good. It was a busy weekend. It was busier than I expected.
I noticed some restaurants in town are not open. They're open for takeout, but they're not allowed to close down because of the numbers.
Totally, and I think some models are built towards making it easier to be able to do that. Whereas ours technically doesn't.
That's good.
Yeah, so that, but yeah, still lots, like the majority was still takeout and delivery. Actually, Valentine's Day was kind of, I was really quiet on the dine-in side, but crazy on the takeout side. But yeah, no, good. The public's been good, customers been good, and it's just a matter of keeping people safe. And, yeah. Okay. Okay, so for all those joining us here tonight, we appreciate you taking the time. I don't have a habit of speaking quickly, so this is probably going to take a little bit of your time, but I want to start out by saying the purpose of tonight is the Town of Slave Lake working in conjunction with the Rcmp to basically let the public know what we're up to, what our policing looks like in the community coming up in the months ahead. What are some of the challenges, and also then hear some feedback from you guys, get some questions, hopefully answer them appropriately, and go from there. We did do a reach out ahead of time. We only had a couple of questions, which Staff Sergeant is going to speak to here later. But Chris, our communications person, is also going to be your voice there to be moderating, reading some of this back. We don't see any of the questions here on the Facebook Live, so we'll be relying on Chris to feed those to us. But without further ado, I would like to introduce you all to Staff Sergeant Don Rcmp. So Don Rcmp just recently become the Staff Sergeant, so that's the highest acting person within our community looking after our department. He is not new. He's been the operations NCO here since March of 2018, so he's not new to the community, and we're really excited by the fact that he's seen that operational side and is now in some of the overall guidance and direction side of things. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Staff Sergeant.
Thank you, Mayor Woman. Hello, my name is Don Rcmp, Tensei. I'm a detached commander, like Tyler Warman has said. I've just been recently promoted to the position, and I've been in Slave Lake since March 5th of 2018. Upon my arrival in Slave Lake, I've had the opportunity to participate in several community events and enjoy the MRC by using the field house, the indoor track, and I ran and I walk in that facility. I also spend a lot of time enjoying various types of hockey. And for those of you that were at the 2019 tournament for the Pee Wee hockey tournament, you might have noticed a person in the southeast corner banging on a drum. Well, that person was me. And no, I didn't have any children or any family members participating in that event. I just wanted to come and be part of the community and cheer on our team, our local team, and be part of the community by showing my support and connecting with the community. I'm also a board member of the Gilward Golf Course, and we have some challenges and some really positive goals that we're looking forward to this new season coming up. I'm an Indigenous person from Saskatchewan, and I've been stationed in British Columbia, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. I'm currently in my 20th year with the Rcmp. So my message to the residents and the surrounding communities of Slave Lake is I look forward to meeting and building a relationship with the citizens, business owners, stakeholders, mayor and council, the reeve of the MD and their councillors, Slave Lake Bylaw Services, and other agencies within the Slave Lake surrounding area. Before I take questions, I want everyone in the Slave Lake area and the region to know what my plan is for the upcoming 21-22 year. The detachment and I will continue to focus on crime reduction. And by doing this, I will be leaning heavily on the community and the communities around Slave Lake, the detachment members, the town, the MD councillors, and councils of the town of Slave Lake to assist in developing various strategies on how to tackle this issue, both operational and financially. As of recent, Slave Lake Rcmp targeted prolific and habitual offenders by conducting curfew checks throughout the day and night. We also targeted organized crime groups such as the Red Alert and ASAP, which stands for Always Strive and Prosper. which these two gangs are indigenous gangs that are in various communities that are surrounded by Slave Lake. These groups have attempted to set up shop within our community and other communities within our region. These groups are more predominantly in larger centers, but have taken the opportunity to house themselves in our communities. These groups bring drugs, violence, intimidation, and the escalation of crimes, which provide opportunities of their network. The detachment has forced some prolific offenders and habitual offenders out of our community and surrounding areas. This still needs to be a collaborative effort and approach by all. And all incidents need to be reported to the police and or to the Safer Communities and Neighborhoods, which is called SCAN. If you are worried about illegal drugs, alcohol, prostitution, or gaming, or any other offenses in your community, in your neighborhood, I encourage you to call SCAN and reach out to them, and also contact us. Another issue that we have noticed within the area is our homeless or vagrancy problem. This is a community problem, and the community needs to step up and find a solution to this problem. This is not an easy to fix, and the Rcmp, along with other organizations, are working very hard to try and find a solution. Here is one way that the Town of Slave Lake, the Rcmp, the Native Friendship Center, and other agencies are doing to address this solution. There's a homeless coalition committee that meets once a month. These meetings are set up to strategize on how to best deal with this problem. The committee consists of citizens from Slave Lake, the Rcmp, the Town of Slave Lake, other agencies, and the Native Friendship Center. So if there's anyone that is willing to be part of this homeless coalition committee and have ideas and solutions to address this problem, please reach out to Barb Cordelli from the Friendship Center or myself.
They currently meet the third Thursday of every month.
Yes.
At 1 o'clock.
At 1 o'clock.
Okay.
The detachment is looking forward to and will be working on getting back to know the community that it polices. Members will be assigned to a school and will be reaching out to the school principals in order to establish that connection. Once again, and will hopefully in the near future be going back to the schools to meet the children and the kids to foster a better relationship. They'll also be able to present presentations on various topics such as bullying, social media, and things like that they'll develop. The detachment is looking forward to holding and participating in community events such as local barbecues, partnering with other agencies such as the Slave Lake Fire Department in hosting local events and other organizations within the community. I want to talk about our job as the police and our frustrations that we face when we deal with prolific and habitual offenders, and how very frustrating it is when we, the police, put those matters before the courts. I believe the Slave Lake detachment has a connection with our local Crown prosecutors, but somewhere along the way, there was a disconnect with the sentencing of those offenders. As expressed from a colleague during a recent town council meeting, he mentions how there are many laws that protect people's rights. The justice system is concerned with people's rights, with people who have been arrested and chartered. And somewhere along the way, the victims have lost their rights, and we've lost the rights as citizens in order for us to feel safe in our own communities. I certainly do not have all the answers, therefore, we need the community and our leaders to assist in holding the courts and its representatives accountable for its actions by releasing offenders back into the community so that they may continue to re-offend and victimize our communities, the businesses, and people. In my opinion, this is unacceptable. For the majority of these offenders, this is not their first time committing crimes. Many of them are out on bail with conditions, and within days or weeks, they breach their court order conditions and will continue to relapse into their addictions and or criminal behavior. I've seen offenders released from custody centers because of COVID-19 outbreaks, so they can be safe. But where does this sit with common people? They also need to feel safe and secure within their own homes and communities. There's been a prolific offender who has been arrested time and time again for trafficking in controlled substance trafficking in firearms, and other offenses. He continues to get released and bound by court orders and on probation orders as well. This person is currently on 8 release orders, which one of those orders is from a different province. People have the right to know this and need to lobby their leaders for change and have their voice heard. As the police, we arrest, charge, and put the evidence before the courts. And how that plays out in the judicial system after the fact is on the courts and not on the police. As a result of COVID-19, the police continue to provide a service to the people in the community, while the courts get to shut down, which cause a ripple effect in backlog of files within that system. Trials and sentencing have been adjourned, and those cases that are fortunate enough to move forward are dealt with by means of staying those charges and/or withdrawing them altogether. We, the police, make the arrest, lay the charge, liaise with other agencies such as probation and other agencies as well. And sometimes offenders are mandated to participate in counseling or addiction treatment. This is what we, police, are dealing with. At this point, I will move into a few questions that were taken earlier. So question number 1, is there a Citizens Commission to overlook the actions of the Rcmp? Yes, there is. It is called the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission for the Rcmp. I can provide you with a number if you choose. The number is 613-952-8045 by fax, or you can complete the form online. So that is one way that we deal with if you feel that you've been mistreated by the police.
Right. Yeah. The question was basically, what oversight does the Rcmp have? And so there is a mechanism that exists, and we encourage your people to use that number or send that information in. Contact the town of Slave Lake if you're having some of those concerns and want to forward them on, but it exists.
Perfect. The second question is, there an Rcmp officer? If there was an Rcmp officer breaking the law, who holds them responsible? First of all, we as the Rcmp hold them accountable. Secondly, the Civilian Review and Complaints Commission, and then the Alberta Serious Incident Response Team in Alberta. They're responsible for investigating of incidents resulting in serious injury or death to any person, as well as serious or sensitive allegations of police misconduct. So those are the 2 questions.
And we see that on the news all the time.
That's right,
okay.
Yes.
Okay, a couple things before we jump into questions, Chris. I just wanted to touch on, there was another question, and I apologize, I don't have it in front of me, but it was about policing and budgets and what we expected from a community. So how it works right now is that the town pays for approximately 70% of the costs of policing in our community, to the tune of approximately $1.6 million. If you feel like that's a big number, it's because it is. With respect. That being said, we've made some small investments in some equipment and some training and stuff over the last couple of years. Specifically, cannabis had an impact on us as well there. But for the most part, that budget is remaining somewhat the same. So not expecting any big increases in that area. I want to compliment you, Dawn. I always hate reading from a piece of paper while I'm doing stuff, so I'm just going to make it up out of my head. So I will say, one of the things that resonated, reaching out to the community, obviously that's something that we're always delighted to hear. So our officers are going to be in our schools, and we're going to see some visibility out there. I think that's something as a leader of the community that we're all looking for. I just wanted to ask, if you could elaborate a little bit. You talked about prolific offenders, and so behind the scenes, there's a lot of things that, as elected leaders, we've had these conversations with Rcmp and so on and so forth, that the majority of our time is spent with the same small group of people. And so the Rcmp over the last couple of years has taken a more targeted approach to dealing with these prolific offenders. And I'm just curious, sort of like a day-to-day, what does that actually look for people that are on the outside trying to understand, what are you actually doing to target them?
Well, like I mentioned earlier, most of these prolific offenders are put on by court release conditions. So they're on probation, they have to remain in their residence 24/7.
So they've got arrested and released, but they have conditions waiting trial.
That's correct.
Okay.
So the courts have imposed conditions on them.
Right.
And it could be anything from, like I said, mentioned like house arrest to you have to be in your residence from 10 p.m. till 6 a.m.
Curfews.
So therefore, that allows us, the police, to go and do a door knock on their residence to ensure they're home. If they're not home, then we will breach them, compile the paperwork, submit it to the courts. And hopefully the courts will sentence them and keep them incarcerated. Unfortunately, what I've seen is COVID-19, they want to protect them as well, so they release them.
Yeah, and so I will sense that I sense your frustration there around the whole judicial system, which is something totally different from what the Rcmp is tasked to do. We share your frustration. We've been fighting with Solicitor General, who basically creates a lot of that, and some of it's at the provincial level, some of it's in the federal level, but there is great difficulty in keeping people that are arrested in jail and speeding up trials. So, we can go into some details. Those questions add up to things that I hear that the province is doing, but we share your frustration, and we'll see where we end up. So, with that, Chris, we've taken a lot of time there. Let's get into some of the questions that they have.
For sure. The first question is, at one time, there was no Rcmp on duty from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. Is this still happening in this area?
Yes, it is. And so with our statistics that I get on a monthly basis, from a policing perspective, we have to put our resources where it's needed. So from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, if the crime is low, it doesn't make sense to have members at 5 o'clock when the crime is increased between 2 o'clock in the afternoon till 4 in the afternoon. That's where we want our more resources. That's where we want to be addressing concerns of the public and dealing with offenders.
So we talked about this before too, and that's why we, some of the campaigns that we've had in the past has really been about, information, report. And so one of the things we really stress to the community is when you see something that doesn't make sense, when something is missing, when something's broken, something isn't right, when you see something suspicious, report it. And so in isolation, lots of times these things are very difficult to analyze what they actually amount to on their own, but in a combination of, you can start to see patterns of where are some of these criminals spending their time, what are the items that they're taking, where these things end up. And so I just really want to stress again, our communication to the public is report, and you put the resources where they need to go. And so that being said, I don't want the community to be left with the thought of every night from 5 to 7 we don't have anyone. That's not how the schedule works. And that schedule rotates because we're smarter than that, right? This is live and recorded. But you're putting resources where we hear them coming from. So if we have a higher impact area in industrial, hey, maybe that's where the members are spending their time for the next few days, because that's where all the calls are coming from. We're seeing more stuff in a certain area or lights. Maybe we're putting your resources from that. That's kind of how it works.
That's right. And also, by you reporting it to the police, we have a system called crime mapping. So we can put that information into a system, and it'll show us where our thefts are happening, our domestics are happening, our assaults are happening. So we can put our resources into those locations. Thefts of bikes, where is it happening? So we download this into a system on a daily basis, with the exception of Saturday and Sunday, of course, but it gives us a picture of where we need to put our resources.
Perfect. Chris, what else you got?
There's just a quick follow-up on that question. Is there someone on call during that specific period of time that they can call? Or is it still 911?
No, 911 should only be used for emergency situations. There is a complaint line that you call, and yes, there are members on call. You call them and they will respond. It goes through our dispatch center, and they will filter through the call. So for example, if there's a barking dog at 6 o'clock in the morning, well, is that a really viable solution to call a police out for a barking dog? No. A found bicycle, for example. No, the member can, when they come on duty at 8 o'clock, they can go and deal with that.
Okay, so let's be clear. In emergency situations, we're calling 911.
Yes.
In non-emergency situations, we're calling?
I don't have the number in front of me.
780-849. 3999.
Not the 399, that's our administrative line.
It's a 30, what is it, 3045?
Yes.
3045. Okay, so to be clear, non-emergency situations, 780-849-3045.
Yes.
So if this is in not a Monday, Friday daytime, does somebody answer this now?
Yes, it'll go right to our dispatch center in Edmonton.
Okay, so somebody's 24 hours,
Yes.
they're answering this, is just a non-emergency line. So 780-849-3045, it's emergency, 780-84, emergency 911.
That's correct.
That's clear as mud.
That's clear as mud.
We probably should rehearse that one ahead of time. But we'll follow up, we'll post some of that stuff on our town website to make sure that comes through loud and clear. Chris is making note of that. Sorry, Chris, did we answer that question?
Yes, you did. Now, the next question is around the COVID-19 provincial restrictions. What happens if people don't want to wear a mask and the restrictions don't Sorry, I apologize. I'm just reading this as it comes in. What happens if people don't want to wear a mask? The restrictions don't overrule the Rights and Freedoms Act. So you can be fined, but the fine is tossed out in court, isn't it?
That's something the courts will have to determine. That has nothing to do with.
I don't-
We investigate it. We lay the charge if it's appropriate. Our primary goal as police is to education is the foremost important thing for us. Second is a warning, and then finally we lay an offense ticket upon the person.
Yeah,
So
and whether or not that is infringing on freedoms or not is for the courts to decide, not for the local RCMP to figure out.
that's right.
Nor the mayor.
It's a provincial statute that we have to abide by.
Yeah, and in fairness too, I get it, guys, I don't want to turn this into a COVID conversation, but we're all going to get a little bit fed up with COVID. So, that being said, the province creates these regulations, they create these laws that we're supposed to abide by. We have people within power, with RCMP or our bylaw or our health inspectors that have the ability to enforce those. Their goal is education first, and then, if you're not listening, then maybe we need to have a sterner conversation, and you're still not listening. We need to, act upon those authorities that they've been granted. Whether or not that they should or shouldn't, or is up to the courts there to decide, and I'm sure they'll be debating this for years long after we're both in these positions. Chris, what else you got?
One other question just about police officer timing and scheduling. How to report a crime if there's no one there to answer? Can you just continue to elaborate on the phone number that you were just talking about?
Yeah, the public can just call that number, and it'll go right directly to our dispatch center. They will filter the call, and if required, they'll dispatch a member to that call.
Yeah, so let's be clear, just because there's nobody scheduled from whatever period of time on whatever day did they decide to do that, this is a short couple of hours. This isn't like where we have nights with no one on for 12 hours. You still call 911, like we don't advertise that nobody's on, and, and dispatch then, like anything, figures out those resources, and if needed, we get someone there right away, because there's still people on call, people still respond. It's not like we gotta wait till 7:01.
No. Members will respond. They get the call, and they get dispatched, they will respond to the call.
Yeah, and so I would encourage the public, that's not up to the public to decide if they should be calling or not. If it's emergency 911, it's not, and you think we should know, 780-849-3045. But if you think for even 2 seconds that you should be calling, you should be calling. So we'd rather have too many calls than not enough.
And to continue on that with that question, this is coming from one of our counselors. Where is the dispatch center located?
It's out of Edmonton, Alberta.
If you have any other questions, please feel free to submit them using Facebook. The mayor and staff sergeant would be glad to answer them.
While we're waiting for a couple more questions, just one real quick thing that I wanted to. So Don, you talked about reaching out to the community. You talked about schools and that kind of visibility. So in some of the conversations behind the scene, visibility is very important to you. I think it's something that residents always like to see as well. And so what other things do you guys do to encourage or promote visibility? What other resources do you use, whether it's bikes or boats or walking or, we've seen some of that stuff in the past. Is that something that we think is going to continue in the future? How does that look?
Yes, once we get the thumbs up from our training branch, we'll be sending members on ATV courses, snowmobile courses, so that we can carry on with these types of patrols in up on top, up by the cemetery, in other rural areas on the ice, the lake, certain areas like that. So those are things we need to do, and we're just waiting for the thumbs up to get this training. Also bicycle patrols. That's very important in and around downtown. Sneaking up on someone that's causing problems is they can see a car coming for miles and hearing a car, as compared to bikes where they sneak up on them and continue the accident.
Fair enough. Chris, if we don't have another question at the moment, I got one other one for you, Don, that I wanted to ask. Tonight at our council meeting, our town council will be evaluating our automated traffic enforcement contract. And so basically Photo Radar, that's a tool that we've used in this community, had some results. We'll get into some of that in greater detail tonight. I'm a firm believer in the fact that it is one tool of many in the toolbox. The question is, you know, I'm just curious from the Rcmp standpoint, is it something we should be still using out of the toolbox, or is it time for something different?
I think it's a valuable tool. I think it's something that we rely on. I think the community relies on. We all know that when people see a police car, their driving habits are proper. When there's not a police car, our driving habits slip. Therefore, if there's that automated system in place, it keeps people on their toes and just for safer roads and safer communities. I believe it's a valid point to have it in the communities.
Okay, so you'd recommend let it keep going for a little while.
Yes, and you know, like I said earlier, I want to hear from the community. I want to hear from what the public has to say about this.
Okay. Chris, and sorry, I keep grabbing my phone, but that's how me and Chris communicate behind the scenes. We're not interrupting here, but Chris got 2 new questions there. Chris, fire away.
3 new questions, actually. The first question is, why don't officers take people that are intoxicated out of businesses downtown at night?
That's a very good question. As I mentioned earlier, this is a community issue. We need to partner with everyone to resolve this. We need a facility to house them. When it comes to their vagrancy, if they're intoxicated, we have a reason to arrest them. We can lodge them in cells for their own safety. If they're not intoxicated, we're caught between a rock and a hard place. Because if we force them out of a business where it's 40 below out, this is not, and they have nowhere else to go. What do we do as the police? So I'm asking you as citizens, if this was your loved one and they have nowhere to go, what would you like for the police to do? They're not committing an offense other than just trying to stay warm.
Yeah, and so this is some of the problems that I've discussed in the past. There is around the fact that if these people aren't causing any harm and they're not causing any disruption, we also can't just arrest them for being somewhere that we don't want them to be. So that has been a bit of an issue. I will say from the town of Slave Lake perspective, and this has been polarizing in some of our local news in the last couple of months. Homelessness continues to be a very complex issue, and vagrancy, what is homelessness and what's vagrancy, and because those are 2 very different things, and each person to the next, like these people come from a life of trauma and issues and mental issues and substance abuse, and so I guess the solution to each problem is very complex and very different depending on which individual we're dealing with. And so we continue to work with the Friendship Center, who's working with ARDN to basically compile some data so we have a better picture and understanding of what we're looking at. They also recently had a meeting there and had some other community leaders from around the region, but the Friendship Center will be spearheading a project with ARDN and CMHC to explore the viability of putting some kind of building in our community and then the supports that go with them. So the town is playing a role there on that board as well to explore what that looks like. The Rcmp is involved, but it is apparent that we need multitudes of agencies to be successful in that. Right, we need Rcmp, we need Bylaw. Those are a couple pieces, but we also need mental health, and we need substance abuse you know, those counseling and psychological services, and there's a lot of things that have to go into that. So I keep looking at Dawn, I should be looking at you guys, but realistically, you know, that onion, we're still peeling back the layers, and there's a lot of work left to do there. Chris, what the question you got?
This is a two-parter question. I'm going to combine two questions that were submitted. How closely do the RCMP work with regional police and the bylaw officers? And also, why don't we use sheriffs in this town?
Dawn question.
Yeah, well, we do work closely with the bylaw officers in town. If they require assistance, they call us, we respond, we help them out with whatever they may have on the go. Bylaw officers, they have certain roles and responsibilities they have to fill. Sheriffs, I'm not sure why we don't have sheriffs. We have Westlock traffic that comes through our town and really gets people's attention.
So no, I think I saw them there the other day.
So that's it's just partnering with different agencies. Sheriffs, that's maybe a question they can reach out to.
Well, sheriffs are really designed for provincial highway, right?
That's correct.
So we'll see them traveling through our community, which I have seen before, but they're not coming in to do policing within the community.
And the sheriffs are part of the court process as well. They're dealing with transfer of prisoners, and we will get calls to assist them.
But yeah, but I will say that Bylaw and RCMP do work together. Like even
Yes.
even our, you know, even getting back to our automated traffic enforcement, like when they set up photo radar in certain areas, that's guided largely from a community plan that's put together from the RCMP in consultation with some of our bylaw or whatever else, so that we kind of know what the left hand is doing, what the right hand is doing. We don't just set these up in cash cow areas. We strategically put them where you're having issues and you want to draw some attention to and create some solutions around. So, you know, you guys have regular discussions to try and figure out the best process for the community. So they do work together. Chris, what else you got?
So just a follow-up question on the Westlock detachment. Is there a reason why we have non-local policing, the Westlock detachment, for traffic-related offenses in Slave Lake?
But I can touch on some of that. So we used to have so the RCMP, obviously, they look at different, let's call it different pods for different areas and so on and so forth. So keeping it simple, we actually used to have a traffic group here. And so that traffic group didn't just do Slave Lake, they went into a broader region and away we go. After the fire, we lost that group. And so it's out of Westlock now. So there's a commitment from that traffic pod that goes into a larger area. Us as one area, you know, I don't know how far north they're going over towards Cold Lake and whatever. It's a big area that they have to traverse there or whatever else. You know, they have a mandate to do X amount of policing within this area. But that being said, when they come to this area, they're focused specifically on traffic. That's 100% their mandate. That being said, our bylaw still does traffic here as well. And so does RCMP. You guys write bylaw tickets. Although I will say the focus of what you guys spend your time on is not necessarily traffic.
Yeah. So I just want to explain a little bit. So when a member stops a vehicle for impaired driving, that member could be off the road for 2 hours, minimum of 2 hours, because of the process of doing all the paperwork, the person providing samples of their breath. It's a long, lengthy process, as well as domestic violence. Domestic violence, we've seen an increase because of COVID. People being housed in the same house for a lengthy period of time, not being allowed to go to a restaurant and socialize with friends and family. So people get on each other's nerves, and we find that as a result, there's an argument that takes place. And that investigation takes a very lengthy time as well. It's just not a 5-minute call and off we go to another call. It's very time consuming.
Yeah.
And so Westlock, also just elaborate a little bit on Westlock, they have a traffic plan, and they do go to certain communities and focus on traffic enforcement, seatbelts, speeding, talking to your cell phone, so forth.
Okay. Chris, what else you got?
Another question around COVID-19, and this question is directed to the staff sergeant. With the COVID-19 restrictions in place, are people being held in cells when they have nowhere to go?
We ask the question to the person, and we have to take precautions because we know people aren't really truthful with us or truthful with mom and dad or whoever. So we have to take it at face value. We ask them, are you exhibiting signs of COVID? Just much like if you go into the hospital, those questions are being asked. We ask the same questions. We check their temperature. If they're exhibiting any signs of flu-type symptoms, we do not house them. We take precautions. So that's the best I can answer.
So basically, if there's symptoms or they identify that they could have COVID, you're isolating them separately from everybody else. If they don't, they're going in general population.
Yes. For example, we had a case last night where a person identified that they were exhibiting signs of COVID. We called EMS. EMS came and assessed them. Sure enough, they took them to the hospital and said they need to isolate for 14 days.
Okay. Chris, next one.
And our last question that we have so far, so if you have any other questions, please feel free to submit them. If we want to register a complaint about people or businesses not following COVID protocols, what is the number we call?
I believe you have to go to the Alberta Health Services and lodge it through them.
Yeah, there's an online number and there's an online form that you can fill out. Chris will make sure that we post it afterwards here on our website, so we don't give you the wrong information. We struggle enough with the phone number here earlier, so let's not screw that one up. Yeah, like from my experience from past when I had to look it up for some other people that asked me, Alberta Health Services website, you know, if you Google AHS COVID complaint, I'm sure something similar would come up, but Chris will make a point to dig it up and post it on our website later this evening or tomorrow. Any last questions, Chris?
No, that was the last one.
Okay. So in closing, I just want to say thanks for taking the time to watch us today. It's recorded, so hopefully some people will follow up with it afterwards. Always looking for feedback on what's working and what isn't. And so you can literally give us feedback any minute of any day by calling that non-emergency line to let us know what's going on. If it's directed, you know, more as a broad-based generic question, feel free to send it to us at the town of Slave Lake. We'll make sure it gets over to the Rcmp if it's related to them or to us. The big message I want to leave everyone with is community policing is what's needed here. And so, you know, the most profound word in there is community. It takes the entire community. If you think that the 15 officers that exist in Slave Lake are going to figure out, see everything, respond to everything, it's all magically going to take care of, we're all kidding ourselves. So eyes and ears have a huge impact. There's a COP program, Citizens on Patrol, is trying to get up and running. I encourage people to be part of that. I know the RCMP is really some of the ones that are trying to take the lead and help those things happen. So we'll look forward to that in the weeks ahead. But eyes and ears, people, give us the information, see what we can do with it. There's been some great stuff. If you're following, you know, I'm really one that I really push every staff sergeant, and I've already had these conversations with Dawn. It's communication. The public wants to know what's working, what isn't, what are you guys doing, and what's happening out there. And they've done a great job about sharing a number of those things that have come up. And so I encourage you to keep doing that. You know, that's all starts with information that comes from the community. And to our point there earlier, that's where they put the resources to, right?
Yeah. So if you have any further questions, concerns, comments, please give me a call at the detachment, and I look forward to meeting you and moving forward.
And what number do you want them to call the
detachment? 780-849-3999.
Okay. Okay, thanks for everyone for jumping in and tuning in, and we'll get back to the streets.